Headliner Nation, what's going on? Chris Kennedy back again for another week of some DFS goodness. Now, we're getting close to Halloween. I hope you guys have your costumes picked out. Not sure what your plans might be for trick or treating, but whatever you may do, I hope that you are safe. I hope that you're having fun with the family, and I hope you guys have a really great week in general. So, with that being said, let's start right off. I want to dive into Monkey Knife Fight. Now, Monkey Knife Fight is a partnership that we've had for the last year, and it's a site that's still fairly new to some people. It's really gaining some traction, but it's a super fun alternative to regular DFS. It doesn't focus on building a certain team based off of a salary cap. It's based off of player props. And that's pretty much just trying to guess if a player is going to have more or less than a certain given statistic based on what Monkey Knife Fight gives. So head over to monkeyknifefight.com. Make sure you're entering promo code headliners when you open up a brand new account, and we will match your deposit up to $50. Just follow the instructions on the screen and you'll be all set. Now, for these picks that I'm going to be giving today, they're going to be focused on the early games. So when you go to monkeyknifefight.com, click on the NFL section and then click on the section that says the early games for Sunday, 11:01, 1:05 p.m. So let's get into the picks now. First group that I'm going to be looking at, and these are all going to be the more or less contests. First one I'm looking at is Tyler Boyd against Kareem Hunt. Tyler Boyd, more or less 5.5 receptions. With the majority of his games so far this year, he's had at least 4 receptions. So for me, I really like this bet of more than 5.5 receptions. On the other side, Kareem Hunt, more or less 88.5 rushing yards. Kareem Hunt, unfortunately, hasn't reached 100 rushing yards yet this season, even without Nick Chubb in the lineup. Hunt is certainly being more used as a receiver. I do love the matchup in general for fantasy. I think he's a great fantasy pick this week. But for me, I am going to say that he hits less than 88.5 rushing yards. Going over to the next contest, Davante Adams and Derrick Henry. They have Davante Adams at 7.5 receptions. I'm going to smash the over and click more on this one just because Aaron Rodgers loves him some Davante Adams, and he should. He's one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league. And with Adams back, he's going to be peppered with targets. Going up against a Viking secondary that has really been banged up, has really struggled this year. I love Adams here at more than 7.5 receptions. Go to the other side here with Derrick Henry going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. More or less 103.5 rushing yards. This is the defense that gives up well over 100 rushing yards per game to running backs. So for me, I think this is a no-brainer. I'm going to be going with more than 103.5 rushing yards for Derrick Henry. Now, we're going to go to the final pick here of the day, and that is going to be Joe Burrow and Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Now, both of these guys can easily throw for over 300 yards. Joe Burrow, in 5 of his 7 games this year, has actually thrown for 300 or more yards. So I love this bet of 293.5 passing yards against the Tennessee Titans. Now we're going to go with Aaron Rodgers here. Again, a guy that is very more than capable of hitting 300 plus passing yards. His over-under right now is 282.5 passing yards. And with Davante Adams back, I absolutely think that this is possible and should happen against the Minnesota Vikings. So both Burrow and Rodgers hit that more button, and hopefully we'll see some success this week on Monkey Knife Fight. So now that we've got the prop bets out of the way, let's head over to the meat and potatoes of this contest here, and we're going to go over to some DFS, all right? Now, all the picks that I give and that I have been giving over the last 7 weeks now, they are all going to be DraftKings pricing. Why? Well, there's nothing special that we have going on with DraftKings. It's just what I personally prefer playing on. You can also use these picks on Draft. You can use them over on FanDuel as well. But just letting you know, the pricing in general is for DraftKings. So we're starting quarterback here. And a player that I mentioned over in the Monkey Knife Fight picks is also my top cash play of this week. And that's none other than Aaron Rodgers. Out of the top 3 priced quarterbacks on the main slate this week, Rodgers is the least expensive at $7,600. I'd much rather pay a little bit down from him instead of going to a Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson, even though you can't go wrong with either of those picks. Rodgers is going up against a Vikings defense that's allowing almost 300 passing yards per game. They're giving up 24 DraftKings points per game and a touchdown rate of almost 7%. So for me right now, where the Packers have an implied total of 30 points, I think this is going to be a fairly high scoring game. I absolutely love Rodgers in this pick. Now, if you do decide you want to spend down and you want to try to save money elsewhere, I'm sorry, save money here to spend up elsewhere, I wouldn't be upset if you wanted to go with Jimmy G. San Francisco 49ers quarterback, $5,400, and he's going up against a Seahawks defense that's allowing 374 passing yards per game. I don't necessarily see Jimmy G breaking 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, but at 5,400, you don't need him to do that. So if you do want to spend down at quarterback, I'm perfectly okay with you going with Jimmy G. My first pick, though, is going to stick with Aaron Rodgers. Moving over to running back, talked about him again earlier over on Monkey Knife Fight, and that is Kareem Hunt. $6,900 on DraftKings. Great matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are giving up almost 100 rushing yards per game. But the biggest thing for me is they're allowing 63 receiving yards per game and 7 receptions per game just to running backs. And as we talked about earlier, that is Kareem Hunt's bread and butter in the receiving game. We don't need him to get 100 rushing yards to be productive because not only is he going to get it through the air, but he's also being targeted more in the red zone than almost any other running back in the league right now. So that's a huge upside for me with Kareem Hunt at 6,900. Over at wide receiver, Devontae Adams is the key. He's the clear pick here. He's also the most expensive. He's $8,800, which is $1,300 more than the next guy, which is DK Metcalf. But I'm going to go a little bit farther down, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a salary saver, and that is none other than San Francisco 49er Brandon Ayuk. The Niners are banged up this week. They're going to need offense to come from somewhere, and against the Seahawks, I think Ayuk is in a smash spot at only $5,800. I think they're going to try to find some ways to make sure that he's matched up on Shaq Griffin, who's been getting absolutely torched in coverage this year, giving up over a 70% catch rate. He's given up over 4 touchdowns on the year. So I think that's a matchup that they're certainly going to look to try and exploit. And with Ayuk, his targets are going to start to increase. He's coming off a big game from last week. And right now, to opposing wide receivers as a whole, the Seahawks are allowing over 60 DraftKings points per game. So give me Brandon Ayuk at $5,800, and that way it'll help you to save a little bit of money to spend up elsewhere, maybe over tight end with someone like Darren Waller of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm not a big fan of spending up too much at tight end, and that's why I'm not going to say that you should go for a George Kittle at 7,000 or even a Kelsey at 6,600. I like Waller at 5,600. It's a nice median price. He's a guy that gets a ton of targets, seeing over 9 targets per game. And he's got a great matchup against the Browns right now, who are allowing 53 receiving yards per game to tight ends and also a total of 4 touchdowns. They're also top 3 in allowed fantasy points per game to tight ends at almost 17 fantasy points per game. So again, tight end, Darren Waller, 5,600. Absolutely love the spot. Those are all my DFS picks for again this week, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you have a chance to head over to our Patreon, subscribe to our MVP package. That way you can get all of my DFS picks, not just for the NFL, but I also do them for golf, and I will be doing them again for the NBA season once that kicks up in December or January. So make sure you're heading over to thefantasyheadliners.com, click on Patreon, and for just $20 a month, you get access to all of my DFS content, all of our exclusive articles, our Straight Chubb podcast. You also get exclusive access to our Discord channel where you can chat with all of us in Headliner Nation. We will answer all of your sit-start questions, all of your trade questions, whatever you want to talk about. It doesn't even have to be football. We will chat with you and answer your questions. That's all I've got for week 8, you guys. Let's have a successful week. Let's have a fun weekend, and happy Halloween to everyone, even if you're not dressing up. Take care.